rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you has gotten real easy today with my guest, Janet Calini from Sonoma, California. Welcome to the show, my dear.
Thank you, Beverly. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, are you ready to have some fun?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we do on this show, because if you can't smile and laugh, then you're in the wrong place. So, what makes Janet click up there in Sonoma County?
Oh my gosh. Well, up here is paradise, so I'll just say something about Sonoma County.
Okay.
It is paradise up here. One thing that makes me click is getting out. If my brain has it in the early morning, there's lots of marine layer and fog and going into the wetlands, and with my camera, taking some pretty amazing photographs. I've been doing photography since I was a little girl, and I did become a professional photographer in the 90s. So it's one thing that I really, really love. And other than that, yeah, I got my business, Visible Transitions. And that is my photographic methodology using a smartphone and curiosity.
Yeah, those smartphones are pretty nice sometimes. They come in handy, right?
Yeah, so this is a way to use technology like where you're in the driver's seat. Technology does not have power over you.
Wow, I love that statement because we look at today and what's going on in the world, right? As technology started to advance, we started seeing each other kind of separate with technology because everybody was doing this. Little kids were doing this. It's just all of that. We were being segregated, so to speak, but we were still all side by side in that segregation. Now all of a sudden 2020 hits, and what happens? Oh my gosh, we were not only segregated, but we were separated, which now it says, oh, you got to go into one place and that's your home and you got to stay there, right? And it's like, wow, what did technology do then? Woo, woo, wake up, let's bring us back together, right? Now we're on webinars and lives and Zooms and you name it, just got inundated, right? So when you say technology, does technology rule us or do we rule it? Right? And so what separated us in the beginning now has kind of brought us back closer. However, we're looking at a lot of dysfunctional things happening as well because of technology. It's not the technology's fault. It's how we incorporate it, how we use it, and what we do with it. So I love the name of your business, that visual, because visual is very, very important. It's very key. And because the visual stimulates all the other emotions, right?
Yes.
And so when you can do that in photography, it's amazing. I am an avid photographer myself. I never turned it into a business, but it's a very strong out front hobby, shall we say. I love nature, and I have so many nature scenes. I don't really do that much with people, in my photographs, but I do nature, and to me, that's what brings things come alive. It just like, enhances everything. And the digital world has taken pictures like boom, 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 click, 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 right? And you can absolutely capture that and not have a high expense. I don't know if you were around when you had to send everything in, and you had your film.
I was taught with film. Yeah, that's when I went to photography school. We were in the film era, in the dark rooms, and Photoshop came along. The whole Adobe Suite, Photoshop, and illustrator, and so my intuition told me I better learn those.
Yes, yes, because you know it doesn't
For the
matter how
future.
those pictures are taken. You're still going to use the Photoshop like for like enhancements if necessary. But it's made taking photographs pretty inexpensive because you could take as many as you want. And they're
Mhm.
right there. You don't have to wait to send them in. You don't have to wait till the end of the roll is done, and then wonder if, oh, shoot, where'd they go? It didn't show up. They lost my
Yeah.
photographs. Are you kidding me?
Mhm.
All of that stuff. So, and it got expensive,
It was quite expensive.
Yeah.
And the thing I don't like about digital photography is there's no mystery. I really
Yeah.
miss that whole curiosity, right? The curiosity and staying in that wonder of how the pictures came out, and waiting with bated breath to go back to the lab and pick up my photos. So I do miss that anticipation. I also miss the dark room, and
Right.
um, photography in terms of visible transitions. It's no, you don't need to know photography at all. In fact, visible transitions was born out of a 5-year illness 10 years ago.
Okay. Why don't you share
Yeah.
that with the audience, how that came into being? Now you got my
Yeah.
curiosity piqued here, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I happen to be a photographer. I love photography. Smartphones are here, and um, yeah, I was sick with adrenal exhaustion, and I lost a lot of my um, like my immune system depleted, my brain function depleted. I lost where I my car was repoed. I went homeless. I lost relationships. I lost my business, and visible transitions. The photo processes were, well, I say they were downloaded. I mean, they came to me, like to my higher self, in different pieces of with different pieces of information. And so I listened because I was on the floor. I remember I was on the floor of my childhood bedroom in my parents' house because I lost everything, and I humbly went back to them. This is 10 years ago or so. And I was on the floor of my childhood bedroom, bawling my eyes out. You know, that kind of cry where it's like it kind of comes from the depths of the earth. It's like you're just like releasing. It's like your
Yes,
organs are going to start coming out.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, when I went through my
So
transition, I had that anger that just I exploded on the world with, right? And then the tears come from, it's like you don't know where they come from. And it's like they don't stop, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked a question, and the question was, what is going to get me off the floor?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is going to get me off of this floor and be a contribution again, and heal. So that question went, I pictured it like in a pink bubble, and it just went off to the ethers, and I left it alone. I stayed curious about my curiosity, right?
Right.
About my question. So I didn't attach to when the answer was coming, what the answer was, and then suddenly the parts of visible transitions photo methodology started coming. And I started to obey the words and the directions. And I noticed that I started feeling more ease, less stress, less anxiety, being back in my power in the driver's seat. We were just speaking to technology taking us away from that. And
Right.
this actually brought me more to myself. It created more connection with myself and others. And uh, the big takeaway of this process is that it reduced my resistance. I was fighting life. I don't want to be here. I'm 40 something years old. I don't want to be in my parents' house. I should be this. I should be that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, that only causes more suffering, right?
Right.
So I just kept using the directions And it helped my healing. The photo and the curiosity, the smartphone and the curiosity really helped my healing by way of, again, like connecting me to myself.
Right.
And yeah, so I was taking pictures of my emotions and my feelings. What does anger look like? What does excitement look like? What does confusion look like? And then I was started tracking subtle steps of progress, because we don't celebrate enough. And then
Oh, yeah.
thirdly, I was taking pictures of things that I was resistant to. So I just sort of briefly went through the three keys, and it helped me heal. And now 10 years later, this past January 2020, I went unconscious twice and fell and smashed my head twice. And now I have a traumatic brain injury, hence the sunglasses. And I used my visible transitions practices, and they helped me just get into that parasympathetic state. That's the healing state of our
Exactly.
nervous system, right?
Yeah.
And it's really been profound for my healing through this, and inspiring for many people, which I'm happy about. And I was out of work for a few months, but I got back in part time to my business, working and serving people like at the end of May, I think. So that's what makes me tick, is this process and serving people. And we're all in a big transition now, Beverly. Yeah,
Oh,
corona.
that's an understatement of the century, I think.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed your story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there's so many of us that have reached, that same arena where it's like you almost have to be, as you said, on the floor, just surrendering everything,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Before you can say, okay, where do I go? And you put that out there, you know. When I did that to myself, and I reached that, that crying in that avenue of total surrender, total exhaustion. I mean, I had exhausted my body from the anger and the yelling and the kicking and the throwing rocks, and we're talking midnight, so walking down the gravel
It comes
road.
when
And
it does.
it does, but I was on my journey as to figure a way to get off the planet. And so
Yeah.
all of that anger started coming out and whatever. But the surrendering part, and I think that's the key element, is to, when you surrender to the circumstance, regardless of what that circumstance is, how big, small, whatever it is, it's your circumstance that prevents you from shining in your own personal power. I mean, I had
Hmm.
totally lost my identity, and that was part of what was going on with me. And it's like this little voice. You're hearing this voice, right? And you
Hmm.
you put out your message and turned it loose in your little balloon. I just put out my message and I demanded an answer right away, right? And I said, because of what I heard that voice say, well, who's going to take care of your kids if you're not here? Now, I had
Mm.
3 little ones, all under the age of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 24 at the time, and it's like, okay, so that means I got to hang around for a long time. Right? So I started making demands. If this be the case, then I'm going to hang around. However, this is what I want. And I made this list. I mean, it was
Hmm.
huge, right? And you know what the voice said to me? It just says, okay. It's like, okay, that's all you got to say is okay,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, so how do I do this? I had no clue. And then, now we're talking 1974. There was
Hmm.
none of this spiritual stuff, especially on a farm in Iowa. Okay? It just wasn't, it wasn't there. And so I hear this mind over matter thing. I have no clue what mind over matter is. It's like, all right, I need more than just that. And then the voice used to start living life for you and your kids. Oh, well, that's a breeze because I was in that process already. And so, really, again, like you said, finding yourself, finding your identity, because that's where it all boils down to is who really am I? What are my assets? What is my driving force? What is that outcome way out there that we want to bring right here into clarity? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you kept going back into your photography. You know, we live in a world of pictures because, seriously, when you look around, everything that gets triggered is in any event has to do with your visuals. What is it that we're watching? How does that trigger our emotions? Right?
Well, and yeah, in my experience, visual is one of the five primary senses.
Exactly.
So the triggers come from the senses. I mean, not just the visual, although that seems to be the biggest
Yeah.
sense, right? From which we are triggered. And I love that you brought this up because, I mean, I wasn't expecting photography to be part of my healing. You know, again, it's like the voices.
Right.
I did at times demand some answers, but for me, that was me in resistance. It wasn't in the surrender state.
Right.
And one of the biggest pieces of the process is to dissolve those triggers, dissolving that resistance. And the neutrality practice is really, really like it's the meat and potatoes of doing that. Because again, right? So through our senses, let's say the visual, we're taking in data. We're literally taking in, and then our brain makes up a story.
Yes.
That the same for me with you. There were times where I was like, get me off of this planet, get me out of here. Like I am so done. I mean,
Right.
I was done, right? So I have all these stories, and then suddenly I'm wanting to be off the planet. I'm in too much suffering, and then the voice said, take a picture of this. And that moment where I wanted to be off the planet was my double sink, kitchen sink, like piled days and days of pots and pans and cooking and just crusty, stinky mess.
Right.
And I had been in bed for like 2.5 days, and I came out to my mess and I was freaking out. I was triggered. And the voice said, take a picture of that thing that you hate right now, that you're angry with. And that's what I did. So I took the picture and I started calming down. And what I did was the neutrality practice. So I started looking at what was actually there. You know, pot, faucet, sponge, fork. Instead of saying crusty, ugly mess, you lose. You should have cleaned this up days ago, Janet. You shouldn't, all that story. I was like, window. And I was just looking like bare bones, what was there? What was I actually seeing? And my stress and anxiety just went, and I was suddenly like back in my personal power.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I was going to ask you, because you had mentioned, you took pictures of what these emotions were, right? And now you just shared one with the audience, which is great.
Well, that was separate though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually separate. It was 3 parts, right? What I just shared with you is the neutrality practice, taking a picture of the thing I'm resistant to. But then there's taking pictures of my emotions and feelings. That's like a separate process.
So when you take a picture of your feelings, of your emotion, what do those pictures look like?
Whatever I want them to look like, whatever you want them to look like, they're symbolic, abstract, pantomimed, literal. So I could take a pencil and a paper and write the word and then take a picture of it.
Okay.
There could be a dog barking, and that represents to me angry. I mean, anything that you or I want in the image to represent. So we're not looking for images and then the emotions or feelings. We're like, okay, here are the feelings that are up for me, and what do those look like?
Right.
So if somebody's around, I'll say, hey, can you act as if you're angry or excited? And they'll go, ah, and I'll take a picture. The the point is that these pictures have a specific intention. It's not paradise in Sonoma County catching the fog in the morning. That's a different type of walkabout.
Right.
These are intentional, and I say this to the point that I think you probably know this, that the brain hates change.
Right.
It's, that identity, the ego, the brain needs to feel safe, and so it really hates change. However, if you start taking these particular photos with intention, for example, the neutrality practice, now we're talking about taking a picture of your feeling or your emotion. These are intentional pictures. You're looking through a different lens, pun intended,
Right.
and it's a learning moment. And the learning moment activates new neurons, new neural pathways, which is great because the more fresh neurons we have, the easier our change is.
Oh, say that again because that's powerful and so true. Say
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So the more fresh neurons, neural pathways that we create, the easier it is to go through the change, the transition.
Right.
Whether it's corona apocalypse in the background with all your other personal and professional changes, right?
Right.
So that's one way that this process can give you more ease. Why not have more ease? And as you speak to,
Right.
the best you, the playful, the fun, like that's the point of life.
Right.
But most of us are constricted, and we're constricted and resisting
Right.
instead of like childlike and expansive in that parasympathetic state, like, oh, all
Well,
right,
like you said,
what it is.
the COVID apocalypse. I like that. Someone else the other day I was watching a little video was calling it the COVID cult. Right? I mean,
Oh,
we're getting all kinds of different names. But again, it's an awakening. I really feel it's a very strong awakening. But the fear factor that's been programmed, and programmed in that fear factor, and that's where we really need to begin to recognize what you're saying. What is it that you fear? And I could see where the difference would be, okay, take a picture of what that fear looks like so that you know what you're looking at to overcome, to move beyond. What are those fears? Right?
yeah, and you're being with the fear
Right.
or the emotion. So if you were like sitting on a park bench in a public park, and there's somebody sitting on the bench with you, um, imagine that stranger is that emotion. So let's just
Right.
say fear, and you're just sitting there with it. You're not going to kick that person off the bench. I don't think you are.
Let's hope not,
Um,
right?
and you're not going to like scoot on over and get closer to the stranger, like attached. You're going to be sitting there in that neutral, curious state, and let that thing be what it is, and you just be who you are.
Right.
So that's how we get there, through taking the picture, because again, it's like you're looking through a different lens, so you can say that you have a little protection here,
Right.
and you're also looking directly at the thing. So again, you're not avoiding it, which is resistance, or you're not clinging and attached to it, which is resistance. So dissolving that resisting state, the fear factor, there's so many great things to do with fear.
Oh, fear can be such an asset and a powerhouse if you utilize it in the manner it was designed to be used, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yes.
spiral you upwards instead of spiral you downwards, right? And because it's just a charge.
Yeah.
It's just a charge. And what are you charging it with? Are you charging it with more destruction, or are you using it to supercharge your more constructive, directions? I really love that idea of taking a picture of that, because it's almost as though when you now bring that photograph up and you're looking at it, it's as though you leave this body here and now you're looking at it as if it were someone else or something else, right? So that now you can begin to digest it on a different manner. And like we said,
Yeah.
the visual is the most, I think the strongest of all our senses, because when you bring in that vision of the event, not only does it attach a database to it, but you hear things different, you feel things different, you smell things different, you taste things different, right? And then that automatic curiosity from the divine intelligence, higher consciousness of yourself says, what are we going to make of all of this now that you saw it and you triggered all this database of information? What is the subconscious database that's bringing up, that's running all of this stuff on autopilot, that's brain chatter? As you said, the brain doesn't like change. If you
Mm-hmm.
Once you surrender, the subconscious says, okay, no big deal, right? And then you start rebuilding those neurotransmitters, right? And that's when the transformation changes, because change will it's going to happen around you whether you go with it or not, right? that's
Correct.
that's never ever going to change. So you have to ask, am I going with change, or am I going to resist the change? Because change doesn't care what you do. It's going to keep on plowing through and it'll just run right over top of you, right? So
That's right. That's right. So the point is, um, enjoy it or not. And
yeah.
and I like what you said about the subconscious database, and what I heard you say, which is one thing that I say is bringing that subconscious around to complement with the conscious, right? So
Oh, right.
we want them in agreement. Otherwise, there's that resistance and the sluggishness of movement and
Right.
changing patterns and habits and taking action. And so that's why I love this process, because it takes us beyond, it takes us a step beyond what we're used to doing, what
Right.
tools we're used to using in change. And it works with that part of the brain, the hippocampus.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
one of my clients says, "Oh, so visible transitions turns the hippocampus into a happy campus."
That's very well
Cheesy but
said.
funny.
Yeah, well, that's what the show's all about, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really enjoy about this and interviewing people like yourself, is because we're coming from another perspective, and visual is where it all begins. I mean, look at the movies and the animations and the brain, which is the mind part. When the mind gets stimulated with the immersion, and when you look at what are the biggest sellers out there, it's all cartoonish style characters, right? It's not the human, it's the ones depicted by another
Hmm.
format. Games, gaming is the huge industry. I mean, it's multi-billion, right? And what is it? It's all animation. You know,
Hmm.
I got involved with virtual reality at the beginning of the year, long before this pandemic stepped in, and we're working in virtual reality. And so basically, what we've done is we've taken the game out, left the fun, and then we put in business, entertainment, education,
Hmm.
because this is that learning process. So when you can take your brain where the brain is comfortable with an avatar, that avatar is you, but it's you in a different format, And that's when things start to really, really shift. Because now, when you're immersed onto these platforms, and you don't need the goggles, you can do it directly from your PC laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to start moving around in there. And the mental health institutions have been using it for several decades. But just, I would say, probably the last 5-6 years is where they really, really have gotten some amazing results working with people with high anxieties and phobias and different fears, and also to help you can utilize it to help build up your confidence, like what we're doing with businesses now and speakers and authors, business owners, is again when you talked about the adrenaline stress right here at the beginning. So a lot of this Zoom fatigue and the different fatigues that are happening on different platforms, the reason for that again is let's get into a little bit of science. On your square.
I love science.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
me too. I tell you, it's made my life a lot easier explaining the things that I knew that I didn't have, the science behind, which I do now. So we are in our little dog cages, so to speak, right? Because your
Mm-hmm.
background is different from mine, and everybody. So the more we have on here, the more static and the more adrenaline, the cortisols and the dopamines,
Mm-hmm.
the stressors are triggered. So when you look at how the eye goes, you have your peripherals, four-dimensional peripheral, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
one eye sees your left side, top and bottom, and the other one sees the right side, top and bottom. So the eye immediately goes to the corner. It goes to where the points are, not where the curves are, where the points are.
Mm-hmm.
And it grabs that, and then it filters it back into the center of where that person is to create that picture. Right? So you're actually looking through a different lens when you are on like a Zoom like we are.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have your little corner and you have my little corner. So now you have 8.
Gotcha.
So every time somebody else comes in, that's 4 more.
Yeah.
And every time someone makes a move, and I move a lot, your brain has to reshuffle and put everything back into place again, right? It reevaluates what that picture is supposed to look like. So now you have, let's just say you have 6 little dog squares. And everybody's moving and talking and doing whatever, What is your brain continuously doing? And then somebody shuts off their picture. And it just goes
And
to...
then they shuffle.
Well, not only that, but all of a sudden you can't see that person anymore. All you see is just this little square picture of them. What the subconscious says, what the mind, the brain is triggering now in that subconscious is a stress zone. Where'd they go?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they hiding? Now we're in survival mode. Fight, flight kicks in. Boom! What happens? There goes that adrenaline. There goes that cortisol. All of that. It's like that fear factor immediately kicks in as to how do I get away from them? Where are they? And then all of a sudden they pop back. They don't pop back where they were. They pop back someplace else. And it's like, oh my gosh. So your brain is digesting all of this unconsciously. By the time you get off of that, you're like totally exhausted. So the more little squares that you're focusing on, the more intensified that fatigue becomes.
Mm-hmm.
The more stress hormones your body is releasing. So we're looking at a lot of neurological dysfunctional stuff going on right now. So when you are in virtual reality and you immerse yourself onto a platform, now everyone sees the same thing. There's no corner squares, so there's no reshuffling. Everyone is an avatar. The brain is comfortable with avatars, very comfortable with avatars, because it's a safety. Now there's no fear here. It's all safety. Nobody's going to judge how I look, what I'm saying, what color I am. Nothing. The platform is leveled.
Yeah.
And then everybody sees the same thing, and now there's a little avatar next to you. You can turn that little avatar and say, oh, hi. You don't even have to ask them their name, because you can run your mouse over their avatar body and there's their name, right? And you can say, hey, hello, right? Janet, how are you today, right? And you're having this conversation in there. The mouths are working. You know, what we do in the bills that we create for people in business is we have like a dress code, you know, where your avatar looks like a human, dresses like a human, walks and talks like a human, right? Now, once you leave those platforms, if you want to do an after hour and jump, there's thousands of different worlds in the virtual reality world, right? You know, you can do whatever. You can dress this avatar to fit whatever environment. So when you're sitting around a boardroom, you're going to want to look, your avatar looks like, hey, I'm in a business meeting here. Now, everybody there is in that same meeting, dressed the same, listening to the person who is in charge. They don't have to wonder which one of these little squares of who's talking. That one person has a voice that has these little yellow things that light up saying, I'm speaking, right? And then if you have this big screen that you can throw up a PowerPoint or a little video or whatever it is that you're looking to get across, right? If you're at a convention, if you're a speaker, let's just say you have issues getting on stage because, right, they're saying that's a major issue. Well, in the avatar world, that little avatar is just going to walk right up there on that stage, and now you become an international speaker on our platforms because we're global, right? So here's your little avatar up there giving the talk of their life because it's a safety zone. It's so powerful.
Never thought about that.
Right. It's so powerful. So the animated world is a key here. We move away the stressors because we don't have these little corners. We don't have everybody, you know, moving around, wondering where our fight-flight mechanisms are triggering, right? And as you do this, it just becomes a part of who you are. So now let's just say you're out of the business, or you're out of the convention, let's move back to the convention for a second. So you have an event where you're given a convention or attending a convention, and there's tables out there, right? So at real conventions, we can go to a vendor table and talk to that person. Well, we can't do that so much anymore. But in the virtual reality world, you can just wander right over there to that little table, and that person's right behind there. What can I help you with today, right? Oh, I see. What do you have, right? And you can actually see what is there. They can tell you about it. So let's just say you're an author and you have a book or you have a course. You have videos that you want them to watch. It's all clickable. All they do is run their mouse over. They click it. They get a link. Immediately it takes them to buy your book, to buy your course, to see what you have available, just with the click of a mouse. Now you're not limited to who can show up at this convention.
Right.
You have people from all over the world that can join your convention. Right?
I think a lot of people are questioning their, the next 5 years in their business. It's like,
oh my goodness,
I run these, I run a leadership lunch and learn once a month. I've been doing it for 4 years and now it's online. And one of my goals this year was to create more diversity in the community. The name is called Rethrival. And since I've been I started being incapacitated and sheltered in place in January. So it's been a long time for me. In any case, now I have new people from different states.
Right. Exactly. It broadens that reach.
Part of the community, and it's broadening the diversity. So I'm over here thinking, oh gosh, what is next year going to look like? Maybe I'll have some in person. Maybe I'll have what. So I think people are thinking about this, right? Are we going to do hybrids, or how can I still have these in person but have the global people come in too? And
yeah, the virtual reality makes that so much more easier and simpler. And we'll have to take you on a demo, because to see it really shifts everything. So any of you listeners out there, you want a demo into virtual reality and how it may impact your life? You know who I am. You know how to reach me. Click on my name, send me a private message and say, hey, I want to know what this looks like. just write demo and we'll get you linked up with a demo. Because in this case, seeing really is believing. We talked about that virtual. Seeing is believing. So with what you're doing, Janet, if you could get your people into this immersive platform, you can put them in any environment that you want. Mm-hmm. You can take a casual, say, hey, you know what, today we are going to all meet down by the beach and we're going to all hang out under the cabana and we're going to have fun, right? And there you are. Or maybe you say, you know what, today we're going to sit around the campfire. Tonight we're going to have an after hours. Who wants to go see a movie tonight? Okay, hands go up, right? And you can pick the movie, take them into this movie theater that is so decked out, looks like a movie theater. Everyone has their popcorn at home and they're sitting around, they're immersed on this platform. You click go on that button, everybody's watching movie, and you could be sitting around the campfire watching the movie. It doesn't matter where you are. Or you can be in that theater and somebody is sitting next to you. What if you took your grandkids to the movies?
Cute.
Or your parents, or what, so it's totally unlimited. And the thing is, now you were talking about some of the brain stuff that you have going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
What they have found is the recovery time from brain injuries happens very fast on a virtual reality setting. Why? Because it's a level playing field. Everything is a safe zone. And we talk about the subconscious and the higher consciousness. I'm sure you're familiar with the beta state of mind, which is your consciousness. Then you move into the alpha levels, more relaxation. Then you move into theta, where everything transforms. When you are immersed in the virtual reality, you hit those levels. You're automatically out of consciousness. You are currently now in the alpha state. The longer you remain in the alpha state, and depending on what you're doing in there, you're going to hit theta and transformation begins to happen. So the process of reversals, and energy healing type of things take place when you're in a safe zone.
Of course.
Right?
In the parasympathetic state.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And your neurotransmitters, you're recreating new neurotransmitters to fire wherever you want them to go, and now they're doing studies with Alzheimer's and dementias and stuff like that. So if you can take the neurotransmitters that aren't firing and reaching those frontal lobes anymore, because it's short-term memory that goes first, now what they're showing is you can actually fire it to where the knowledge is, the information is still there. The database has not left the brain. The ability to reach it has.
Yeah.
Right? And so
particularly around organizing thoughts, like recalling and retrieving pieces of information.
Right.
That's difficult. And then when it actually happens, after 3 weeks,
right.
And then bringing it into form and organize is pretty different.
Yeah,
I would love to see a link.
There. Yeah.
I would love to get a link on that about the TBI and the how the virtual reality helps with the traumatic brain.
Well, we'll take you into a demo, and you'll be able to pull out exactly the answers that you're looking for because of where you are, already, and the studies that you've done, and being a product of it, and understanding the visual. That is what's really relevant, when you're in the virtual reality, because it just like brings you right there, and it happens very fast. Even, because what we do on our demos is we have it in a Zoom, but like where my background is here would now be the virtual reality platform. Where you see me here, you now see my avatar, right? And if you click that one screen, it goes into speaker screen, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Now it's like you're becoming immersed into that platform because you're following my little avatar to all these different adventures. And so we do have schools looking at us now because this is where kids are learning, is in this platform. Well, why not teach them the constructive way to use virtual reality instead of blowing things up? Because, it's that gaming and it's that excitement that triggers, again, those endorphins. that
The
cause a lot of
dopamine.
different stresses, right?
Yeah.
Because it's an addiction.
Yeah.
It's an addiction, and that drug of choice, whatever it may be, you have to keep getting more and more of it to get the same outcome, right?
Well, interestingly enough, when you take a picture with intention in this process,
Uh-huh.
visible, you are actually activating. So not only the neuro
Transmitter.
transmitters, you are actually activating dopamine and serotonin. So
Mm.
it's the constructive, the favorable
Yes.
approach. And I hear you talk about this, and I talk about it a lot with my clients or in my talks. Is there's a constructive way, a favorable way for
Right.
us to get those hits.
Right. And the crazy thing is, is that center, that gets triggered, those hormones that get triggered, the the positive hormones or the structural hormones, shall we say, are there in the same place that the stressor hormones are, right? They're all in that same location. It's what are you triggering? We talked about what are you feeding it, Are you sending it a positive charge? Are you sending it a negative charge?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, wow. Janet, we could talk about this like for
I know.
hours.
I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I'm more curious.
Well, hey, isn't that what your work is all about? Visual curiosity?
Staying in the curious space, that
Yes.
observer space, right?
Right.
Being the neutral observer.
Right. Well, too, and the things that we've been talking about, seeing is believing when it comes to different visual things because it moves your thought processing and everything into different arenas of database storage inside that brain. And you want to constantly, shift that database of information. If it does not serve purpose, move that database out, bring in the new database, and start firing on those avenues. And transformation will take place like really, really fast, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how you get there, it matters that you get there. And so there's different pathways and different journeys, and not one size fits all. And that's why what Janet is doing here is different from what I'm doing and different from other people you've heard on my show. But guess what? The outcome is the key, and the outcome is the result that moves you in that spiral upward. So whatever journey it is, whosever path you feel comfortable on, reach out to them. Reach out to them. So speaking of reaching out, Janet, if people want to reach out to you, how do they find you?
People can find me on my website. It's visibletransitions.com. You can probably see it in my name here. Visibletransitions.com. If
Okay.
you forget that, then you can go to janetcaliri.com and it goes to the same site. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you're welcome to message me on Facebook. And I don't know, do I give out my email or phone number here?
Go
or?
ahead if you want to.
Okay.
It's all up to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. And I offer complimentary discovery sessions if you want to hear more about what I'm doing and how it might apply to you and this chaos we're in. My phone number is area code 323-252-0963. That's 323-252-0963. And you can also email me, janet@janetcaliri.com. Beverly, I'm assuming you'll have my name spelled out somewhere in the
Yeah, it'll be up in the top, who you are and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to touch base. I love serving people. I love helping people in life changes because, as you were speaking to earlier, they're always here. Change is fundamental, and why not feel more ease? Why not experience more joy
Exactly.
and play?
That's what this show's all about. If you come here and you don't have fun, then you let me know what didn't I do to make this day fun? Because I had a great time. Did you have a great time, Janet?
I had a great time. I'm in a state of curiosity, so that's my power place.
Well, there we go. Then we hit that, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right, Janet, thank you so much for being on the show. And we're going to
Thank
wrap
you,
this up.
Beverly. Thank you all for watching.
And we'll definitely have to get you back.
Yeah, I would love. I
There
would
you
love
go.
it.
Well, now
Okay.
it's time to say go out there and be that best
Bee.
that best curious you that you can be, right? Because Janet and I, we got the curiosity and we're going to be the best we that we can be. And guess what? I am going to take her on a journey to rectify that curiosity we created today. So if you want to move past the curiosity you got out of this show, comment below and say what? Demo! And we will see you all on the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye.